They were arresting all the young people they could get. And the trucks were waiting for them at all the streets that they had blocked. And they were just kidnapping all the young people they could get and get them in the truck and deport them. So I went over to one of the guys. I looked at him and I chose the youngest soldier and I put my hand on the barrel of the gun and I lifted the barrel and I said in German, Sie werden aber nicht Ihre eigenen Leute festnehmen, ne? And that means, you're not going to arrest your own people, are you? I need to go to Germany. I need to go to the train station. I'm going to work in Aachen. I got to go to work. In the meantime, the other guy, who's seeing what I'm doing, I lifted the gun up. I took the gun practically out of his hand. And this guy is there, and he's going to shoot. And he says, no, don't shoot, she's German. I got away with it. I am Fernande Davis. I come from Belgium. I was born in 1923 and I went all through the war in Belgium. Belgium is a very small little country. It's about the size, I think, of Maryland, but it's populated twice as much as Maryland is. We have only about 2,100 people in our little town, and but the village I come from is named Montzen, and it's right within 5 miles, I would say, from the German border, which means we were one of the first people that got invaded when Hitler marched in. My family was a big family. I was brought up in the Catholic Church, in the Catholic religion. We had 8 children, and my father was hurt in the First World War, so he was an invalid all his life. And Mom ran a little country store. We had a country store, and I guess it was only 2 of them in the village, so that we sold just about everything you could eat, anything, any food, cans, things like that. My papa was in the First World War, fought in the First World War, but he was hurt and was kind of limping after the war and a long time. Anyhow, but he also was a spy in the First World War. While he was in the war, he was spying on the Germans all the time. He also had a brother. He came from a pretty big family too. His parents were farmers. And Uncle Hubert, his brother, was a priest. And he was a priest in the service during the war, in the First World War. They were separated because of the war, and they hadn't seen each other for a long time. And the war started in 1418, right? I have to say it in French because I don't remember. I can't say it in English. Anyhow, they didn't see each other until 1916. And how they encountered each other was fabulous, and that's why I keep the picture preciously. Papa was in the fort of Verdun, the big battle of Verdun, and he was there, and all of a sudden in front of him stood his brother priest. And it was the first time they saw each other during the war. Uncle Hubert was coming to administer the dead people in Verdun. Montzen Gare became very, very important in that war, always was in the First World War too, because we were so close to the border. The school that I have here, the picture of the school, was the middle school, which was right in the city, and next to that was a pharmacy. The pharmacy we used to love, because when you were a child in Belgium, my mom did not send you to the doctor every time you got a cold. When you had a cold, you were a little bit sick, you walked to the pharmacy. So you'd walk to the pharmacy and you talk to the pharmacist, and he would look at you and he would say, okay, I'll give you a little pill, and he gave you a little piece of candy. And that was the big thing about it. We all loved the man because we always got a piece of candy. When we went to school, we went every day to school. There were no buses. There were no snow days. You went to school, rain, shine, sleet, snow, whatever. We had, my parents used to have a shoemaker who came to the house every June, came to the house to measure and see who needed to have new boots. We all had boots up to our knees, and they were all homemade by the shoemaker. What we did before we went into school, we'd leave early and we have to go to church first. Every single day I had to go to Mass, because that's just the way it was done. My parents were religious and they wanted us to go to school. We lived near the railroad station. Now it is important that you picture that area. We were about a football field maybe away from the station. Our house was the last house, and then the greens, what I said, looking like a football field, and then the station. The yard, the rail yard was so big, it had 145 parallel rails. Now when you think of your little railroad station with two rails coming by, no, they had 145, because we called it a gare de transformation, and that meant that all the merchandise coming there had to pass duty, and people going from one country had to have a passport checked and all that stuff. And there was a viaduct that had been built in the First World War. The Germans had built it with Russian prisoner manpower. But this huge viaduct went from Montzen, where we are, and rolled right into Aachen, Germany. Or right over the border into Germany, okay? Why was that important? Because during the war, Hitler started immediately using that railroad station to bring in all his ammunition on the trains coming from Aachen, bring the ammunition into Belgium, take the merchandise that they stole in Belgium and in Europe. And where did Hitler want to go? His aim was England, right? He wanted to get through the Channel. Well, that was probably about one of the straightest ways to come. So that particular railroad became very important and very strategic to that at the time of the war. When the Second World War came, of course, Hitler, the first thing Hitler did, they marched in May the 10th, 1940, and within a very short time, they had moved the border back into Belgium. They took that land back, but they didn't just take that land back. They took 10 more boroughs up to the Holland border and made the German border into Belgium, which took us into Germany. All of a sudden, from one day to the next, we were German. You have to understand what happened to those people over there. Instead of having military soldiers who were going to fight with the Belgian people, now they were going to be in the Wehrmacht, and they were going to fight against the Belgians. They forced naturalization on many people. My father refused naturalization. And what they did was, the day Papa said he did not want to become German, he did not want the naturalization, he was, here I am Belgium and I will stay Belgium. And they told him then, well, then you just try to feed your kids. The Belgian government always used to give, we used to call it une allocation familiale. If you had 4 children, I think, or something like that, and more, you got helped with the government, from the government, with the big family. And that was eliminated immediately. They requested induction in the military service, but they were smart. They didn't ask my brothers to become soldiers. What they did was, they tried to find an ancestor or somebody of yours who had that much to do with Germany. And if they could do that, then you were in the military service. And now you were going to be trained as a German soldier to fight against the Belgians and against the Allies. If they came by your house and heard the BBC on, the punishment for listening to the BBC, which was England, you know, that meant we listened to a clandestine station. That was not German. You only were allowed German station. If you were caught, you were put on 2 years forced labor, just for listening to the radio. Hand over all copper, brass, metal, silver, and gold. Hand it over. Anything you have in gold, pots and pans, whatever is metal. Hand it over. Why? To melt for ammunition. None of it went over well. We were fighters. We hated everything they were doing there. We hated their invasion to start out with. It was the second time they invaded Belgium in 22 years. Okay, the first time they burned all the businesses down. They killed how many thousands and thousands of people. Now they're coming again. There was nothing nice about it. Everybody hated them. But some people eventually realized that they could not keep sabotage them, because if you got caught sabotaging, they would shoot you or they put you in jail. So my school was always run in French. Everything was taught in French. But of course you had a second language, so we also learned German. Starting in 3rd grade, we had to learn German. But everything was taught in French. But when they came in, no more French. He fired all the teachers in that area and brought in all German instructors. And they were all German teachers, and they would force the kids to say Heil Hitler in the morning. All of the things came off the wall, the king, the queen, the crucifix, all off the wall, and who do you think came up there? The picture of Hitler, where we saluted every morning. They had a salute. Another time the boys came in, all the boys in the whole class had on their lapel a Belgium insignia, a little Belgium flag or something. All the boys were wearing it. And of course they had a call. The teachers called the commander, the military commander, to come to the school and witness what's going on here. I can't handle these kids, they're all saboteurs. So this is all young kids, my youngest brother. I was not home when they invaded at the border. And the reason I wasn't home is because my dad, he was a very well instructed, he was an educated man, and he was very aware of the politics of Hitler, and he followed the whole war thing. And he decided that when they come in, they would invade Belgium. And he decided that when they do invade all these countries, they're going to run out of manpower. They won't have enough soldiers. And he decided that what they're going to do, he said, I bet you they're going to start drafting all our young people, all the Belgian people, and use them. So he sent me, I was 16 and a half, and he sent me into Belgium, in the center part of Belgium, to a friend of his who had a villa in Andenne, and the brothers and sisters living together. The brother was in the war, the sister was home alone, about my mother's age. So I was supposed to go down there, so I was there when the war started. I wasn't there very long. All of a sudden, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I heard these planes over. Oh my God. And I thought we thought it was the Belgium, the Belgium planes that were having exercises. No. We looked up. We ran out in the street. Sure enough, there was German planes, the German bombardiers, with the Hakenkreuz, the swastika on the back of the plane, on the plane. So of course we know the war was on. There was war. People panicked. Everybody panicked. People at the time, you have to understand that the people in the entire country were scared to death of the Germans, because they had behaved so badly in the First World War, and they had killed so many people that people were really scared, and especially in that area. So what happened? Everybody was going to evacuate, people started running. Nothing was running. The Germans had stopped all the trains, stopped all mode of transportation was stopped. There was nothing that would work. So the only thing that you could use was your bicycle, your wagon from the farm, a horse, if you had one, a wheelbarrow. People were being transported. People got on the road with whatever they could have. They could transport something. I saw grandmothers holding babies sitting in a wheelbarrow to run away from the Germans. And people would take what they could, as much stuff that they could take, they would take it with them and, try to run away from the enemy. So the enemy was in back and above. The enemy was bombarding these people, and the French army and the Belgian army coming up. They were coming up to fight the Germans. Well, that lasted about, I think it was 3 days before we made it to France. Many, many times the Germans would come over and they would bring, I think the planes were called Stukas. And they would bring the Stukas and they would come and they would come pretty high, and then all of a sudden, down they come, tack, 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 machine gun everybody, and then back up. Many, many people got killed. Many people. I had a bicycle, and the lady with me also had only a bicycle. We were both on bicycles. And I had the 2 suitcases. She couldn't take a suitcase. She was too old to. So I had a suitcase in the front and a suitcase in the back, and my big blue hat that Mama gave me for Easter. I had my hat on. We evacuated to Beauvais, to France, with whatever we could take. Horrendous evacuation, absolutely horrendous, because food, drink were just not available. Finally, we made it there, and we got to this farm. The man their farmer, we asked him if we could stay there, and he said, only if you help me to feed our soldiers. The farm was invaded totally with French soldiers, French army. They were coming up front, remember? They were still fighting the Germans, but the Germans were riding back of us, really on our heels. So what the French did, they took a cannon, a French cannon. A German was about twice as big a size. Anyhow, French cannon sitting in the courtyard. They were shooting at the German cannon, maybe in the next woods over there. They were shooting at each other. So of course, we ran out around the side where you could get out on the fields. The man had built some kind of a bunker. All it was a hole in the ground. He had dug a hole in the ground and put some corrugated metal on it and some dirt. Anyhow, it saved our neck, because the top of the house all came down in debris and was falling all over the place, because when they were shooting at each other, they damaged the property. That battle, there was a battle when they caught up then. The Germans came in. We were all in the thing, and what they used to do is, when they went to look in a hole like that, or in a bunker, they would always go and check. The Germans would go gang point to check to see if there was an army there. So they came and they stopped, came around the farm, and the man had asked me, the farmer had asked me, do you speak German? Now don't forget, in that area nobody spoke German. Anyhow, he said, please go up and talk to them, please go up. They were so scared. So I went up there and I held my hands up and I said, halt. And right away I had a gun on my neck. And I said, okay, don't shoot, I'm German. Because I spoke real good German. And my father had told me, you speak the best you can. The best German you can when you want to lie about it. I said, don't shoot. These are my people down there. There is no ammunition. There's nothing that's going to harm you. If you let them come up, I can vouch for them. But I'm German. Ach nee. Na ja, was machen Sie hier? Why are you here? Then you must be in Germany. You should be working for the war. Wait a minute. We need a dolmetscher. Dolmetscher means a translator. My commander needs a translator. They had already set up a headquarters in Beauvais, where I told you we had We were maybe 20 miles, no, 10 miles away from Beauvais. They wanted me to become a translator for the commander. And he was going to, all of a sudden, up comes this Gestapo with this huge big, or this big, immense motorcycle with a sidecar, and he wanted me to get in there and transport me to the headquarters. I said, look, ho, wait a minute. I have not slept for 3 days. There is no way I can translate a word. You need to let me sleep for a night, and I will be ready tomorrow at 9 o'clock. He believed me. I couldn't believe that he would believe me. And he said, okay, I'll be here tomorrow morning, pick you up. Of course, by morning, you know who was gone, don't you? I wasn't waiting for him. We got away at 1 o'clock in the morning. We picked up our bicycles and we started leaving. Not on the highway though, we had to carry our bicycle through the fields. And I saw everywhere, there was a dead horse, over there was a dead cow laying upside down with a big stomach, and all these dead things around. But I said, let's go, we got to get out of here. So we went all the way up to the field, to the end of the field, and there was this little gate where the people would come in and out, I guess, and later leave the cows in and out for the farm. The farm was right there. And all of a sudden I see this sign, but the writing was on the other side for people coming this way, for the Germans. So we got the bicycle over there, and I looked at the sign, and you know what it said on the sign? Nicht eintreten means, it means do not enter this field, it is mined. We had walked the entire field that was mined with our bicycles. Okay? We were so shook up, we got on our knees and said a prayer of thanks that we were still alive. Got to that home in Andenne with my friend, and I thought, I don't know if my parents are still alive. What happened to my parents? So I wanted to go and see my parents. I had no idea there was anything annexed. No, I didn't know that. I was not home. So anyhow, I walked. I had to walk because there were no trains, no transportation of any kind. So I walked about 47 miles home. Took me, I forget how long. Anyhow, I walked. And I got very close to home in a village before that. And all of a sudden I see this German with a gun on his shoulder and a big German shepherd on a leash. And he picks up his gun and he went, halt, where's your passport? I said, my passport? I don't need a passport. I'm not going to Germany, I'm going to Montzen. You're going to Montzen? Yeah. I said, I'm going to Montzen. I'm not going to Germany. Na ja, Fräulein, you are in Germany. So no, I'm not in Germany. I'm going to, he said, we have annexed this whole entire area. You are now in Germany. I will let you go home, but you will not come back out. So, I went home, saw my dad, and Papa said, you can't stay here. You cannot stay here. You got to go back to Mademoiselle in Andenne, because this whole area has now been annexed to Germany. We are considered Germans, and you're going to be the first one they're going to draft in the military. And if they don't do that, they're going to take you and they're going to send you to make ammunition. So I stayed there for a couple of days, and then I came back again to Andenne. I was in Andenne, I really can't remember the times, for some months. And all of a sudden, I got a letter from my father. And he said, you better come home, because there is a paper you have to come and sign, and you're being drafted. So back over the border I went, again in the middle of the night, because I had no papers. So I went back to Papa, and sure enough, there was my draft paper. And it said, you are to report to the station at a certain time in the morning, and you are to take that train, And if you should not report at the station, we will imprison your father or the breadwinner of your family. Okay? There was no choice. I had no choice. I couldn't let my father being imprisoned. The poor guy was already a veteran that was hurt in the World War, and papa of 8 children. And I said, I have no choice. I will go and report at the station. I told my dad, I'm going to go on that train, but I guarantee you I will not cross over to Germany. I'll go on the train, but I'm going to get off. Somehow I'll get off that train. So I reported to the train station, and the Gestapo was right there. They were signing up all the people, taking your name off the list. Allez, on the train, get on that train. It was a huge train. The front was all merchandise wagons, we thought. And the back was all for us, for the deported young people that they had sent papers to that were all being drafted. And it said on the draft paper that I was being deported to Danzig, Germany. Danzig is all the way up on the Polish border. And Danzig is a city where Hitler had installed all the lots of ammunition factories where they made the bullets, where they made the ammunition. So we were being deported up there. Lastly, all young people. The train, when it left our town, our Montzen town, when it started out, there was a small bend here, and it would have to go very, very slow till it got over that bend there. And then it would roll the viaduct, the whole entire viaduct. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Anyhow, what I did was, I sat in the middle of right at the end, first seat. So the minute the train started going for that curb, 4 of us got up and threw ourselves out of the train. Jumped right out of the train. Rolled out. We got down to the big high grass, very quiet. In the front of the train was a guard with a gun, waiting to see if anybody was going to get off, and also in the back. But when they got around the corner, they couldn't see it. I never did get to Danzig, and I didn't get to Germany. And I told my father I wouldn't, and so I didn't. So when we finally got up, scared to death, you can imagine, we got up and we were afraid to talk to each other. We didn't trust each other. We really didn't trust each other. We didn't know each other, and we didn't trust each other. So we didn't talk to each other. So everybody went different ways. I came back on my steps where I came from, and then head off the other way to go on foot into Belgium, into the center part of Belgium, to my uncle. He was again spying against the Germans. So I went into him. I think it took me 2 days to get over there. My uncle said to me, okay, I looked at a wreck and I was tired, I was hungry. And he said to me, go see Marguerite. And Marguerite, in the kitchen, she had a dinner ready for me right away. But I found out Marguerite was a Jew. Marguerite was a Jewish mother, and she had a daughter who was, I think, 12 or 13, something like that. She had a little daughter, and the 2 of them were hiding in the rectory, in my uncle's rectory. My uncle was gathering all the Jews together. Anybody who didn't know where to go, they came to him. And he would hide them in the attic. And then I think I stayed for 1 night, and then I had to leave again. I couldn't stay there, it was too dangerous. But Uncle Hubert was already known at that time by the Germans, and was already really surveillé, we say in French. He was watched by them. The Germans would come by and they would walk by the place at night. You would hear the clicking of their boots. Even from our bedrooms we could hear the clicking of the boots. And what they would do is, every once in a while, they wanted to arrest him in the worst way. But they would come by and And we never got undressed totally. Anybody who was there clandestinely did not get undressed totally. But what we would do is listen to them, and the clicking of the boots. If they stopped, then we knew they were going to ring the bell. They were going to come in and control the house. So then we get out of our, out of our bed, put on the shoes, put on whatever we had to put on, and then go into the attic. And in the attic was a little dormer window in the roof, in the roof. We climb out of there and lie on the roof. So I told him, I said, look, I need an underground card. I need a false identity card. Hitler had no time for, identity card, yeah. We all had identity cards in Europe, ever since I was a child. But no, Hitler wanted every young person had to have, he called it an Arbeitskarte. That means, Arbeits means working. You had to have a working card. And if you didn't work for the Reich, then you were no good. You had to work for the Reich, or you had to work for a farm. You had to work making stuff for the Reich, or the ammunition, or the farm, work in the farm and get vegetables and dairy and all that. That was all shipped to Germany. So my uncle got all excited. He said, no, you cannot go in the underground. You're much too young. Oh my God, no, it's too dangerous. You can't do that. No. And the more he said no, the more I said yes. So by the next day, he brought me my false identity card. But I just enjoyed the idea of being a saboteur, and a smuggler of Jews, and passport and document counterfeiter. All that, I was so excited about it because it was just a revenge. It was a revenge mechanism. I thought, now I'm going to get them. Now they can't do anything to me anymore. But of course, the fact that it was all underground, if they arrested me, I was done. I became a resistance person and enrolled in the Armée de la Libération. Armée de la Libération is Army of Liberation. By the end of the war, we had 7,000 members in that particular area. What we really did was we worked actively against the German war. I was supposed to go to my uncle for the day and wait for somebody to come. And in comes this man, and he says to me, okay, your first assignment. Remember I told you about the annexation? All right, I want you to go back there, on the other side of the border, get over the border, and fetch a Jewish man who had escaped from a concentration camp. 22-year-old young man. Here is his false identity card. Go and fetch him. He will be in that farm, in the second door, in a stable. He will be with the cows. That's where you go get him. Get him the card and drill him and make sure that he does not answer with his name, Josh. He had a different name. The name I was giving him was Pierre. The date of birth was different. Everything was different on that card. Now you drill him and make sure that he knows it by heart. I gave him half an hour. I tripped him only one time. After he was all finished telling me the right answers of his false identity, his false birth date and all that stuff, where he was born and all that. And then I said, okay, Josh. And he went like that. I caught him. I said, you don't know it. Josh is not you. Now I have this boy, this guy. Now I have to take him back over the border. The reason they picked me to do that job is because right up that little road was my uncle's house. My uncle had a tiny little house, and what he did for a living, he closed the barriers on the train and opened the barriers on the train. There was a train running through from Montzen to Morsnede and all that, and he would have to always close that. I was over here in the farm. Uncle Alphonse knew where I was, knew that guy was there. He was part of the underground. He knew it. He came in and said, okay, I will be back and let you know when to leave. Because what I wanted to do is get up with my guy, go that way, cross the border over, without the German guards seeing me. Because the Germans patrolled all those roads, all those borders, with German shepherds, with dogs, and they let the dogs loose on you. Okay, my uncle came down and said, okay, get ready, I'll let you know. What my uncle did was, in the end, he waited until the train was announced, but a little bit ahead of that, he closed the barriers already. That meant that the German guards were on the other side. They couldn't cross. They had to wait for the train to be passed by. You see? He had it all figured out. My uncle knew every hour of every train coming there, okay? And when he had somebody to let by there, or a spy or somebody, he got across. He never got caught. But he left lots of people in. So he came in, all of a sudden I hear the whistle. Here comes Uncle. Okay, so we come out and we crossed over. All of a sudden I hear this noise. Stop. We stopped and I thought, uh-oh, it's a dog. Because that's what they used to do. See, if the sentinels, if the guards were too far and they saw you, they either shot or they sent a dog. I thought, oh God, it's a dog. So I just didn't move. I froze. And I look over there, and all of a sudden I see the cow. It was a stupid cow. The cow wanted to come with us. We walked home to my uncle, and there Marguerite was there. And Marguerite took care of me, but he could not stay there because it's too dangerous. We were too afraid. We had some other women spying on the head of the Gestapo. We had a woman, a nurse, who would actually sleep with the officer to get information. And she called and said, you people are going to be arrested at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Get out of there. So I immediately left. My uncle, they came and took my uncle to jail. Uncle stayed in jail for a couple of days and then they left him come home again. Because he was a priest of that parish. That was my first assignment. There was a little square. And there was all these streets coming in, into a square, Every one of those little streets had 2 soldiers standing on the pavement at gang point. That's a gang, that's a gang. The barrel of the guns touching, so that the people could not walk by. You could not get out of the square. They were arresting all the young people they could get, and the trucks were waiting for them at all the streets that they had blocked. And they were just kidnapping all the young people they could get and get them in the truck and deport them. I wanted to go home, go where I was supposed to go. I couldn't get out. So I went over to one of the guys. I looked at him, and I chose the youngest soldier that I thought he was the youngest. He was blonde, he was a good-looking kid. And I put my hand on the barrel of the gun, and I lifted the barrel, and I said in German, Sie werden aber nicht Ihre eigene Leute festnehmen, ne? And that means, you're not going to arrest your own people, are you? I need to go to Germany. I need to go to the train station. I'm going to work in Aachen. But I didn't say it like that. I yelled it at him, okay? I really was loud. And I said, but I made that whole sentence up. I said, you're not going to arrest your own people, are you? I need to go to the rest house. My train is leaving for Aachen. I got to go to work. In the meantime, the other guy, who's seeing what I'm doing, I lifted the gun up. I took the gun practically out of his hand. And this guy is there, and he's going to shoot. And he says, no, don't shoot, she's German. I got away with it. One day, I was told to go to my uncle's little dining room in the rectory at a certain time. And I was there, I went. And in comes this hobo. This man tall man. My God, he looked like he hadn't had a shower for months. Dirty old coat on, big pockets, long hair, the typical hobo kind of, you know what a hobo is. I don't know if you call it that today, but anyhow. And he came in, and the first word he said to me, I knew he was very well spoken. I knew he was probably one of the leaders, right? He says, okay, here, you're going to Banu. Banu is a little locality where people go to pray. It's like Lourdes. The Virgin Mary is supposed to have appeared to children. And lots of people come there to pray, to ask for miracles when people get sick, you know that type of thing. They have it here in Chesterhover. And he says, you're going to Banu. And he had this little red hanky around his neck, little red thing with polka dots or something, And he picks it up and throws it up and puts it on a table. And in his pockets, he goes and takes some old crummy-looking wash from a little guy, some more stuff. And then here he picks up a little package. It was about the size of a double-deck of cards, wrapped up in old newspaper. He puts it in the middle. Then he wraps the whole thing up and ties up the hanky, a couple nuts, and then he has this stick. And he puts the stick on my shoulder and hangs the little bundle in there. He said, here, now, I want you to go to Banu. I want you to deliver this to the Sisters of St. Francis in a sanatorium. Now he says, your Arbeitskarte, your own card, says that you are employed there. See, he knew what my card said, my false card. And it said that I was an employee from that sanatorium. He said, okay, you take that, you give Sister the Oberin. He gave me the name of the Oberin, and he gave me the password. And he said, and here that little kid, and he had a little boy with him. Oh, he must have been that high. And he says, and you take that little kid with you, and if anybody asks you what you're doing with that child, you tell them that he has tuberculosis. He's going to the sanatorium. Okay? Allez. He bumps me on the shoulders. Okay. Good luck. God bless you. Now, goodbye. I got up there, and Banu is situated in a beautiful wooded-like area. A lot of pine trees. It used to be a place where in the olden times we used to send people that had tuberculosis. All of a sudden, we got to the top of this little elevation, pine trees here, big mound of dirt there, and over here an opening. And you could see the convent where we're going. And you could see the statue of the Virgin Mary. And when we were there, the little boy said to me, oh, ma tante, my aunt. He had an aunt that was a sister there. She was a nun, which I didn't know. But the kid said, ma tante. Oh, I said, oh, très bien. And I'm looking at them, and when I look back, 2 Gestapo standing in front of me. They were hiding in back of that heap of dirt with their big fat motorcycle. And when they saw me coming, they stood in front of me and they said, halt, Arbeitskarte. Meaning, give me your working card. So I'm looking for my card and I'm just dragging it about. And he starts screaming again. And he says, die Arbeitskarte. Ich sag, ja. I gave it to him. And then it hit me. And I said to him, and he said, now where do you work? And I looked at him, and in a really fresh tone, I said to him, don't you know how to read German? It's on the card. Well, you don't talk to the Gestapo like that, okay? You just don't. Unless you speak very good German, and he doesn't quite know how come you speak such good German, okay? Und was ist das? What is that bag you have up there? And what's it with that kid? And I said to him, the kid is going to the sanatorium. He has tuberculosis. And that's his dirty wash. Would you like to see it? And I make believe I'm going to take it off my shoulder. Well, I never forget that reaction. Raus! Raus! Mach raus! Geh weg! Weg! And he backed up like they were so scared to get tuberculosis. So I started out walking. I said, okay, all right. I don't think I wasn't scared, believe me. I must have been white as a ghost, and my legs started shaking. And so I started walking and tried to get to the convent. And all of a sudden I started praying. When it got like that, I always had to pray. All of a sudden I felt fine. So I get to the nuns, okay? I get to the convent. The door opens. Hab alles gesehen. I saw everything. Come on in, come on in. I give him my password. Alles gesehen, alles gesehen. Okay. The little boy disappears. I don't know where. And the bag. I never saw who took the bag. But they know what it was. What do you think was in the package? About 15 false identity cards for the English flyers that were going to come in that night by plane. They were English spies. And then they're going to need cards, right? They can't come without them. The nuns, German nuns, Franciscan nuns came from Germany. They were in cahoots in the underground with us. And the sisters were going to give those cards to the right person. I could have died. I couldn't believe it when I saw this nun. Anyhow, I thought, oh my God, I'm in the right place, you know. But I was lucky. I was lucky, wasn't I? Boy, if that Gestapo would have said, I want to see what's in that, open up that package, I would have been shot right there. I mean, I wouldn't know how to change that. That was probably one of the most dangerous ones I did. The end of the war in 1944, as April 28, 1944, the town of Montzen was bombarded by the American forces. Yeah, that was sadly enough. The Belgian people were not at all angry. There was no anger at this bombardment. Now, the bombardment was so large and so huge. And they threw on the little village and on especially the area where we lived, they threw 1,200 bombs in 15 minutes. 1,200 bombs in 15 minutes. They practically plowed the place. It was really drastic. Next to us, of course, the railroad was totally destroyed. Our house, the entire structure moved off the foundation. We had a big house, first, second, third floor, 8 bedrooms. The whole entire thing moved over. In Liège, in the city where I was, there were 1,592 bombs dropped on the city, just the B bombs. 3,446 people dead. They were the bombs without pilot. They were the motor bombs. They were they looked like planes, and they came in with a lot of noise. And when the motor stopped, they would run them with the motor running until they ran out of gas, I think. And then they would stop, and then they would come down, and you could hear them. The noise was horrific. But the minute they stop, you know that it's going to fall. That's where they used to build them in Austria. The last information I got from the underground in writing, which we almost never got, it said, do not go to Germany. In other words, don't let yourself get caught and be deported to Germany. Patriot, dear friend, we are particularly happy to be able to send you food stamps for August and September in 44. See that the underground used to then, after you got in there and they know you, then you got food stamps. They were all false. They were all printed, you know, for the thing. So, be careful more than ever. Don't compromise by vain words the work of those who risk their lives for you. Be silent, do not talk, prepare for the final blow which will put Germany on its knees. Do all you can to avoid the massive deportation which could take place very soon. Be ready to observe and to report all that can be useful to the Allied forces during military operations. For this you must study the enemy and its organizations of transport. Learn to use maps. Study the disposition of German defenses, the military depot, repair workshops, the state of their campaign ground, the roads and the bridges. Observe meticulously the disposition of mines and traps. Keep an eye on enemy collaborators. Deliverance is approaching. We will soon find our nation more beautiful and stronger than ever. That was the last letter that we got. Then I met my dear Bill. I give you a little bit of the love story. Bill and I met in Liège. He was in the 29th Infantry Regiment and stayed in Liège for 4 months. Don't forget that while the war went on, all during the war, as long as the German soldiers were there, you could have had any date you wanted to, but nobody would have wanted to go out with the Germans. That was an absolute disgrace if you did, and you were almost called a collaborator with the Germans. He left Belgium on April the 4th, 1945. By that time we were secretly engaged. What happened was, when Bill was there in Liège, I had asked my dad. My mom had died, by the way. Right after the war, Mom died and left my father with 8 children to take care of. The youngest was 12 years old. And no house and no business. The store was closed, the house was inhabitable. So one day, interesting, he was standing on the bridge with a gang, and he was looking at all the people, a walking bridge, all the guys coming this way. What they were doing was, they were checking every soldier that came by to see if he was not a German in American uniform. Because that's what the Germans did. They'd kill the GIs and they wear their uniform and spy on the army, then come in like that. So he caught a couple of them, but that's what he was doing. He had a gun and he was standing there. And I was introduced to him by another friend of mine who had an American boyfriend. And I know when this Charlie said to Bill, Bill, this is Freddie Davis, and he said, hi. He wouldn't even look at me. He said, hi, okay. And he said, I'm sorry, but I am on duty. And he was looking to make sure if there was any, they must have known they had people that were not military, you know. He said to me, I'd like to take you to the movie next Sunday. And I said, no. I don't know why I said no. I was afraid. I hadn't had a date, and I was really afraid. I didn't want to get near anybody. Anyhow, so finally I went with him to the movie, and he talked to me about his uncle who had been killed in the First World War in Belgium. He was killed over there. And he was talking about his family and all that stuff. Anyhow, we got to know each other a little bit better. Then I asked my dad one time I could bring him home. Oh, no. None of my daughters go with soldiers. No. My father would have given his shirt to be grateful to the Americans for winning the war, except for his girls. No girls was going to get an American soldier, okay? So that was totally out. I bought a book where it had everything by sentence in French, translation in French. So I was always with my book. I talked to him with my book in my hand. It was very funny. After 4 months, all of a sudden, there's a knock at the door. He's standing there. And he said, we're leaving. We're being transferred. It was the Battle of the Bulge. So he was going to be shipped out. Okay? So I spent the rest of that war, I spent on the balcony at night crying and you know, really being very, very upset because I didn't think I'd see him again. So I didn't hear from him. I got 2 letters, and he got 2 letters. Then all of a sudden I heard nothing. And I just stayed and worked for 2 years for my family, so they got enough to eat for everybody, so they got a different place to live. I didn't hear from Bill anymore. And I thought, well, he must have changed his mind. And if he didn't write, I didn't write. I'm not going to force him. And, you know, it was too far away to do that. And so I went to college. I went to nursing school in Brussels. And I did 2 years there. After 2 years, I get this letter. Red, white, and blue all around. There's only one person that had a red, white, and blue letter to send to me, and that was him. So I grabbed the letter and ran like crazy and went upstairs, and sure enough, it was Bill. And he said, I would just love to know, why did you not answer my letters? Are you married and are you happy? Bill. I said, I'm not married and I'm not happy. I'm in nursing. I should be finished in another year. Finally, I went home to my sisters, and my sister Mary, who was my best friend, said to me, well, I said, Mary, I don't understand it. He says he wrote to me. Why didn't I not get the letters? And she said, well, if you promise you will never tell Daddy, I will tell you where the letters are. Your father confiscated your mail. Next letter comes, big letters like that. Will you now marry me? Now? Anyhow, so I, of course, said yes. Then I had to go to my dad. And my father was a highly respected person in the family. What he said goes. That took 3 months, that whole pleading. And finally, the last time I went home, Bill had sent me a ticket for the airplane, one way to the States. I went home with my ticket, and we went to the garden, and we discussed everything in the garden. We both cried and all that. So finally I thought to myself, I was so psychologically worn out. And I thought, well, maybe he is right. Maybe Pop is right. So I went back to the kitchen, and we sat down, we had a cup of coffee, and I said to him, Papa, I need to decide today. I picked up my ticket, I put it on the table, and I said, listen, here's my ticket. If you cannot give me your blessings to marry this boy, the man who I love, you tear the ticket up, okay? I can't do it. But you destroy the ticket right now. Didn't take much. He put his hand on top of mine and he pushed the ticket back. And he said, now, Kinneke. Kinneke means little one. Now, little one, you know I can't do that. I would be living your life for you, and that's not my job. So you must go. And I came. I was so much in love with that man that if he would have moved to China, I would have followed him. I didn't care whether it was America or China or wherever. I just had to be with him. And I came over here that same night that we came in New York, where I had left all my family in tears, oh la la. I get to New York, his father dies. Papa Davis is dying in a hospital. So we rushed home, and he went to see no, he stayed. He wouldn't leave me. No, he wouldn't leave me. He said Papa was expecting me to come. He was looking forward to it, and he was not going to leave me alone all night. So the next morning we went to the hospital, but he was dead. Yeah, so that's what it was like. So when we went home for the first time, my father really outdid himself. He redeemed himself. He took a taxi to come and get us at the train station, just himself by himself. And he came to welcome Bill, And then he had the most beautiful dinner catered, and the best liqueur and the best cigars. Whatever Bill wanted, Bill could have. Bill was fine. And he told me that he thought that my husband was his best son-in-law. While I was living in Andenne with this lady, after the war had started, after the Germans had moved in, my father sent me back to Andenne again because he didn't want me to be in a home, and so I have to go back for a couple more months. And we used to go to the farm to get milk. So I was asked to take my dog and my bicycle and drive to the farm for milk. And I wanted to take the shortcut. So I left the dog home and went up to the hill and in the field and was going on the side of this field, and all of a sudden I see there was a big, beautiful oak tree. And at the foot of the oak tree, there was a soldier lying there. And I knew that he was dead because the gun was in the ground, upside down, and the helmet was laying on top. That means that the soldier is dead. That was a sign of dead warriors. And I saw that, and he was dead. So I didn't know what nationality he was. So I walked up, I dropped my bike, and I went up, and sure enough, he was German. And as much as you hated somebody, when I saw him, I thought he was still alive, but he wasn't. But as much as I hated it, I couldn't walk away. I got on my knees, and in the Catholic Church, when somebody dies, you immediately say a certain prayer. And got up my knees, and he had a hand over his coat like that, and in his hand was a couple pictures. He was probably trying to get them out of his pocket, the uniform pocket. They were half out, half in. And I looked at them, and they were the pictures. They were his children's pictures. Little babies, two, maybe one was a year old or something like that, And so I put them back, and then I said the prayer for him. I said the Our Father for him. And I was very, very, very hard. It depends on what kind of circumstances you have. I was always the kind of person that would immediately react and step in for the helping. Who needs help? Or make a triage. Who's alive, who's dead? And then work and get it done, get them out, help them, get the Red Cross in, and It was hard, it was really hard. But you were so busy trying to do the right thing to survive, There's no time to mope around, and to me that was always the better thing to do, because it was, so at least I could do something, You first must know that there is a right and there is a wrong. We still today have a right and a wrong, even though much of society tells you there is no wrong. Everything is permitted. I said, no. Find your right and your wrong. Find justice and injustice. And then, if you really are in the right direction, you choose what's the right. You choose what's right. Then you have courage, because you might lose a couple of friends. But I said, don't follow the crowd. Do what is right. Find what is right. And I said to them, you see how much it is possible for one person to change the world. And don't let anybody tell you different. The heroes are the poor guys who are hurt, who can't walk, who are in the hospitals, who try to give their life and do the right thing, and who end up not having a life of their own right now. And the people that have died, that never did come home, those are heroes. People like we just helpers. I mean, we survived. So why did we survive? We were lucky, right? No, we're not here. I don't want to be a hero. No. If somebody said to me, well, weren't you afraid to die? I said, yeah, of course. But I always thought if I do die, at least I died from a good cause. I did something to show, that I was not in agreement, And I don't know where the courage came to do it. I don't know. Probably up there. I don't know.